Okay, so before we begin the video today, there are a few things in order. One of my videos was reposted by none other than Alex J. O'Connor, and as a consequence of that, I now have a significantly larger subscriber count than I used to have. So for that, thank you, Alex, if you're watching this, and I'm also glad of the fact that you liked my edit enough to post it onto your own channel. So yeah, thank you. And if any one of you has not watched that video which Alex reposted from my channel, I think you should watch it. That took some effort to make, and I think it turned out well, and quite clearly so does Alex. So I'll put the link somewhere around here, right? You should watch it. And at the same time, I'd also like to welcome all the new subscribers, right? So welcome to the channel. I hope you will like the content that I create. And so yeah, with all of that sorted, let's get into the topic of the video. So the issue that I want to talk about today, right, is the fact that some cultures around the world, and even in my own country, have a norm of eating dogs. And most people, when they find out about that fact, they are flabbergasted, right? They say, well, that's wrong. Right? That's completely wrong. How could they be eating dogs? And I want to analyze that. Right? I want to analyze if it is wrong to eat dogs. I want to analyze the reaction that most people seem to have. So let's begin. All right. So to answer the first part of that question, right, of the discussion, rather, is it moral to eat dogs, or rather, is it morally permissible to eat dogs? And I think the correct way to phrase the answer to that question is to say that to eat dogs is the moral equivalent of eating chickens, which is to say that they're both immoral, right? They both cause unimaginable, unnecessary suffering onto innocent, sentient individuals. And for what? For a few minutes of temporary taste pleasure. So yes, eating dogs is immoral. There is no doubt about it. And at the same time, it is not uniquely immoral, right? It is immoral, it is wrong, but it is not morally distinguished from what the rest of the world does, which is eating chickens and eating goats and eating cows. Right? There is no moral distinction. Okay? Moving on to the second part of that discussion, the reaction of most people to finding out that some people eat dogs. Right? They are outraged, right? They are disgusted. Think of the reaction that you see to the Yulin dog eating festival. Every year, without fail. Right? Like people cannot believe it every year, right? And people are outraged every year at a festival in China where they cause unnecessary suffering onto dogs. At the same time, I've seen some other people claim that it's bigoted, that it's racist to criticize some cultures for eating dogs. They say that it is their culture and you should respect it. So which is it? Is it okay to be outraged by the eating of dogs and by the causing of unnecessary suffering onto dogs in some cultures? Or is it bigoted and racist to do so? Well, that depends. That depends on whether or not you're willing to criticize the moral equivalent in your own culture. Right? Are you willing to criticize the eating of chickens and pigs in your own culture? If you are willing to criticize the eating of chickens and pigs and goats in your own culture, right, then there is nothing bigoted or racist about criticizing some other culture for eating dogs. Clearly, your intention is that the most vulnerable in our society is the non-human animals should not have unnecessary suffering imposed onto them because someone else wants a few minutes of temporary taste pleasure. So that's okay, right? If you are willing to criticize the moral equivalent in your own culture. On the other hand, if you're not willing to criticize the eating of chickens and goats and pigs in your own culture, right? Or worse yet, participate in the eating of chickens and goats and pigs in your own culture, then you have no right to be criticizing another culture for eating dogs. You have no right to say that, that culture is a disaster. Well, if that culture is a disaster, well, so is yours. Any culture that continues to exploit innocent, sentient individuals for mere temporary taste pleasure is a disaster, right? Before you point a finger, wash your hands, right? So I could end the video right here, right? I've already discussed the two aspects of the issue that I wanted to discuss, right? But I can already see a certain kind of response coming my way. So I'd like to respond to that beforehand, right? So I can see a certain number of people just, coming up with, you cultural relativist, right? You keep saying that animal exploitation is wrong, but you're completely okay. You're defending these cultures who exploit dogs. Dogs are animals, Look, what I'm doing here is not cultural relativism, right? It is the opposite of cultural relativism. I want these cultures who eat dogs, right, and the mainstream culture sort of, to be held to the same moral standard, right? That is not cultural relativism, right? If someone were to be, really disgusted and outraged by the eating of dogs in some cultures, but is completely okay with the moral equivalent in some other cultures, which is like eating chickens, that is cultural relativism. That is holding two cultures to two different standards. That is cultural relativism. What I'm doing here is the opposite of cultural relativism. This is not cultural relativism, right? And I'd also like to throw in a footnote, sort of, that if someone were to be okay with eating dogs, right, but is outraged by the eating of chickens, that too is cultural relativism. So yeah, both of those two reactions would be cultural relativism. What I'm doing here is the opposite of it. I'm saying that both of these kinds of culture should be held to the same moral standard. So don't come at me shouting, you're a cultural relativist. I'm not. Okay, so that's it for this video. I've been Aditya Prakash, or Soytheist. You can follow me on social media here. If you like the video, leave a like. If you love the video, subscribe to the channel. And I'll see you in the next one.